gosh, a lot of drug use led to what Apple became. I never once saw Steve doing drugs. He never talked about it with me. So it was very subtle and minor and kept out of my view at least. Steve talked about a couple of things he'd done in high school. They had taken clay and take a photograph. Move the clay a little, take another photograph, change the clay, take another. It's called claymation, and it makes movies. Where did that come out? Pixar Corporation, years and years and years later. I don't even know if Steve remembered how he talked about that when he was in high school. He also talked about a book he'd read called Atlas Shrugged. And he talked about how in Atlas Shrugged there's only a very few people that are like the Shakespeares and the Isaac Newtons that move society forward. They're important for actually getting things manufactured and done. And everybody else sort of is just interchangeable in ways things can be treated like nothing and fired at will. I didn't like that kind of talk, and it's a shame that it kind of, I think, influenced Steve quite a bit in his life. Well, I drove Steve up to college, and he did not like the fact that they told you what courses you have to take. That's how counterculture he was. So he never took their courses. And he never paid money, he just stayed with friends in the dorms. And he never paid tuition, but he just went to classes and sat in to interesting ones so he could learn a few nice things. Very different style of life and education, but he was very young, and his personality was forming. Meanwhile, he was up in Oregon, and down in the San Francisco area, Hewlett-Packard was making the iPhone 5 of its day. It was called a handheld scientific calculator. Within 5 years, every engineer, every scientist got rid of their $10 slide rules and bought this $400 calculator because it could calculate numbers in a display. You could type them in. It was accurate. It was fast. It's just everything that engineering is about, that calculator solved. Even in a recession, it made Hewlett-Packard a profitable company. Even though every other division of Hewlett-Packard was losing money, our calculator division made money. Well, they heard I was a great designer. They brought me in, and they interviewed me. I didn't have a college degree. I had had 3 years of college by now. But they hired me on the spot. Oh my God, how incredible a thing in life to be hired as an engineer designing the best product in the world. I came to love Hewlett-Packard. Hewlett-Packard was full of engineers. It was driven by engineers because back then, Hewlett-Packard was building the tools that engineers used. So every one of us engineers was building the tools that we would use ourselves, so we understood the users. We understood the market as well as theoretical marketing people did. Values in that company, you were allowed to communicate up and down the chain of command in Hewlett-Packard. There was never anything wrong with going above your own boss and talking to somebody. The founders of that company made it that way. It was called the Hewlett-Packard values. They made parts available at night to any engineers that wanted to work at night. They made parts available to engineers like me for anything of my own design if my supervisor approved. So if I wanted to build something with chips, I could take these little $1 chips, very inexpensive type of education for Hewlett-Packard. They felt that the education of their employees, their development of their own minds was what made it valuable. So I would design calculators in the daytime. I'd go home at night, and I had no chance in those days of having a girlfriend or a wife, to tell you the truth. So I would watch Star Trek, and I would have TV dinner, and then I would start working on my own projects. Many great projects involving technology. The very first dial-a-joke machine ever in the San Francisco Bay Area. I saw Pong in a bowling alley, and I was stunned. I said, I want this. Oh my gosh. I could never afford something like a printer, which is the output device of a computer. Input and output devices cost a fortune. I would never be able to save that much money. But all of a sudden I thought, my gosh, I have a television at home. I know all the television signals from high school electronics. I can build any little computerish device in the world with my knowledge. I'll build a little machine that puts dots on the TV set that are balls and paddles and plays Pong. And I built a little device with 28 $1 chips that played Pong. Well, Steve Jobs came back from college in Oregon and he saw it. And he took my board, my design, down to Atari. And I don't know if they knew I designed it or if they thought he designed it, but they gave him a job on the spot. So now he was working at Atari. Steve, he was very young, and he's like a lot of young people you know. They're just sort of too much energy, and they just want to talk to everybody, and they want to throw their opinions into every decision being made. That impresses high-up people sometimes in companies. Steve was always able to impress high-up people, but it gets on the nerves of other people, you know, that Steve's challenging the ways that they do things that they've been doing for 10 or 20 years and they know what they're doing. So they had to move Steve to the night shift, where he worked all alone by himself. And I didn't know that at the time, but then looking back, I can totally understand it. So, Steve came to me and said, Atari is